This is the Google Education app PD from training on August 11th. So we're just going to go through some of the capabilities that Google has added to their education services and some of the ways that you can use them when you're teaching. So we'll start with some basic Google features from Search and Gmail, then go into the basic Google Suite apps like the Docs and the Sheets and Forms. Go through some of the extensions that can help and add-ons for certain apps, and then some of the additional Google apps that can be used in classroom in some creative ways, and then we're done. So one of the basic capabilities is that beyond a Google search, there are some specialized searches that have additional features to them. So the three that we're going to focus on are books, scholar, and trends. Each of these is available if you just go to like books.google.com or scholar.google, trends.google, or if you just Google any of these terms, they will pop up. So books is the first one. This is the icon to find it. On Google Books, you can find full text or excerpts from books, magazines, and newspapers. So you can just search by title, you can search by author or topic, and then refine the search down. Anything that you like in there, you can save to a personal library so that it's available to you anywhere. You can search within a text for certain keywords. You can, if it's not an ebook, you can find it in local stores or libraries, so it'll tell you the price, like from Barnes & Noble or from Amazon or other nationwide booksellers right on the page. It'll tell you what libraries in your zip code or around you have access to it. You can generate citations for the book in all different formats, and you can find, if you like that book, it'll tell you other materials from that author. It'll give you previous editions for the book, related material that other people also bought another book once they bought this book. So there's a lot of things that the page can give you. My favorites are the fact you can search within it, you can save free ebooks into your library and just access them later, and that you can get citations for any book pre-made for you in multiple formats. The next one, Scholar, is really similar. The difference is this is looking at peer-reviewed papers from like scientific or academic journals. You can also search for patents there, but it's all things that have been reviewed and approved and published. Again, you can save these to your personal library so you don't actually have to bookmark them or print them or whatever. And you can generate citations in multiple styles. The other nice things you can do is find related articles, so it will connect you to any papers that cite that same paper, or papers that were cited by that paper, or just articles that are from that same topic. It'll also separate out full text articles, so ones that you can get for free versus ones that you need a subscription to a different service like JSTOR for, and it'll tell you where you can access those articles if you want the full text. The last one is trends. So this one is a little bit different, and what this will do is basically give you analytics on what Google searches have been done worldwide for the past several years. So you can enter any search term, you can do something very specific or something very general, and it will tell you. I have down here the search printout, so this was for the term lemonade for the past 12 months, and it tells you the trending for it, so that it peaked earlier this summer, which makes sense. So that's the history of the trend. You could compare lemonade versus like iced tea, and it will give you a graph with several lines. You can look at the geographic distribution, so where were these searches most popular? And this can help when you're looking at like current events and seeing whether or not the news that we're getting is the same as what everybody else is getting. And then you can also reverse search this, and instead of putting a term, you can just put like what were the most searched terms in the US this past week versus China this past week. Or I guess not China, but you could do Russia instead and see whether or not they have the same trending news that we do. Moving on to Gmail, there's just two features that I want to go over that can help like expedite your time in Gmail, and that's making custom inboxes that separate your different emails out, and then creating email templates for questions that people are asking you over and over. So for custom inboxes, this lets you filter out to have a separate inbox for maybe more important emails, or just having them out by maybe ones that are sent by parents versus ones that are sent by students. You can filter it by whether or not there's an attachment or keywords that are in the email. So what you're going to do is to go into your email settings and then click on the inbox tab. And then for inbox type, you're going to go down to that multiple inboxes. So you can make up to 5 and then have a different search query. So that's basically anything that you can search through your email for, so sent by or attachments or whatever you want to send by. You're going to name your inbox and then you can do that there. So you can do like sent by a Google group or anything that says marine biology in it, whatever you want to put in here. You can put multiple search terms in there. So you could say, I want emails from these 3 people to show up in my first inbox, and then use these other ones. So that's nice if you have some emails that are more priority than others that you want to separate out. And then the second thing are to have templates. So this will just copy and paste a certain phrase or paragraph into your emails. For these, you're going to go to advanced settings. So still in your email settings, we were in inbox. Go over to advanced, and it's the second down. You want to enable the template tab. So what that will do is when you open a new email, to send a new email, just open a draft and then type whatever it is you want as your template into the window. You can include links, which I think is the most easy way to utilize this, or the most useful thing. So if you're always telling people that they should check a certain page of the website or go to Google Classroom, which is at this link, whatever you're always sending people, you type that out and then click on the more options down here, go to templates and say save draft as template. It's going to let you name that, whatever you want it to do, and then it'll just automatically be saved. So then when you go to send an email again, anything that you've saved here, you can click in. So for example, this is saying it's named transcripts, and if I click on that, it's going to say, if you want transcripts, please fill out a form located at this page of the website and send it. So this can be just part of an email you send out. So that is especially useful, like I said, if you want to be sending links to maybe a conference or a page on the website. Next up is calendar, and again, there's just 2 features I want to go over for this. The first one is finding a meeting time, and the second is how to create an appointment slot instead of an event. They're both very simple if you know where to click. So to find a meeting time, this is if you have a meeting you want to have with somebody and you want to see when you both have free time. If you go into making an event and you say more options and it pops up this full page, under event details, you can also click find a time. And so based on the length that you've chosen for your event, you want to have a 1-hour meeting, it will compare your schedules in Google Calendar and see what times are available. So here we don't have a lot of overlap times. So you can click over here and it'll say find a time, and it will bring down this pop down menu and tell you all the times within like a couple days search radius of when you both have an hour free. And then you can just change the time and send it to that person. The second one, which I think is more useful maybe, is appointment slots. So instead of making an appointment, you can create open slots for people to sign up to meet with you. So this is really useful for office hours and for parent conferences. So what you'll do is when you set up an event, instead of selecting event, put it over to appointment slots. You're going to set what time frame you're available from. So here I have for an hour and 15 minutes, I want to have 10-minute meetings, and save it. So for you, it's going to save as an event, but then you'll see it also generates a link here, and you'll click here, and it takes you to a new page which looks slightly different. And here, the appointments slots are all here. So anyone you send this link to can click on any of these event slots, and it will automatically sign them up. So anybody with a Google email can do this. They don't have to be in your domain, but they do have to have a Gmail. So they'll select a slot and say, I want to meet during this time. They can send you a message if you want. And as soon as they say, yes, take that time, it will create an appointment on your Google Calendar and send you an email notification telling you that someone has signed up for that time. You can then turn it down if you want to. So it turns into a regular event invitation at that point. So this is really nice, like I said, if you want outside people to choose their own time to meet with you, if you want to set certain office hours and students just click in when they will come talk to you, and then it sends you both a reminder that you have that appointment. Moving on to Classroom, I just want to go over some of the settings that are useful to change, and then two different things you can add to your classroom to make grading a little bit easier. So for your settings, the ones that you want to check and customize are the stream, so decide whether or not you want students to post and comment or not in there. So you can do it completely private so they can't post anything. You can do it so they have complete access like I have here now, or you can do in between where they can't post a full topic, but they can respond to anything you say. So I would recommend leaving it open unless someone abuses that privilege. So there is a way that you can mute just certain students if they have abused the privilege, but that's not done through this menu. And then down here for guardian summaries, you probably want to turn that on. So this allows parents to receive information about upcoming assignments and what missing work their student has. It doesn't grant them, we'll go over it, doesn't grant them full access to the site, but it lets them see it. You can also, I didn't mark this one, but make a Meet link. So instead of making a new Google Meet for each class period that you're meeting, you can just leave a room up so any student can access that all the time. The new thing that they put in for grading is that you can add category weights to your assignments now. So just like in Aries, you can add this in so it calculates a more accurate grade, and you can display the student's overall grade in the class. So you can see that I've weighted, you can only see the final there, but you can weight it the same so that at least to you it shows what their grade should be, and then if you want the student to be able to see it, show it here. The guardian summaries, like I said, are not really a robust showing of what's happening, but it's kind of just an overview. The parents have to sign up for this themselves, so you don't have the ability to actually just send them a guardian summary. You just tell them they can see it if they want it. So what it does is for every class that allows a guardian summary, it puts them all into one email that it sends to them and groups things by missing work from the past either week or day, depending on how often they want these summaries. They can choose a weekly summary or a daily summary. So it'll tell them from the last week what they missed, what assignments they have been assigned that they haven't done yet, and then any announcements that you make in the stream. It doesn't show any comments by students. It doesn't show any topics posted by students. It doesn't show them the grade, and they can't see anybody else who's enrolled in the class. So it is very private still, but it does give them kind of an overview of what is happening with their students' classes. One note that I want to make is that if you invite a guardian, like they're not already in the system, and you send them an invitation, sometimes those invitations don't go through. I tried to be posted as a guardian to see what that notification would look like and what my weekly summary would look like, and I never got the invitation. So then when I added it again, I did get it a second time. So if a parent is saying that they never got the notification you might want to believe them and then just try inviting them a second time, like delete them out and re-add them. The last thing that is kind of a hidden feature that you can do is to export your entire gradebook into a Sheets or into Excel so that you can use like analysis on their grades. So what you're going to do is to click on any assignment in the gradebook, like literally any assignment, and then within that assignment you'll see where students have turned it in, and you're going to click on the settings gear, and then the drop down is going to give you 3 different ways that you can see the grades. The first one I think is the easiest, so you can copy all grades to Google Sheets. It sounds like it's just talking about this assignment, but it means literally every grade from the class. You can also download all grades as an Excel file or like a spreadsheet data, and then download these grades does just this assignment. So if you copy it over into Google Sheets, it makes it into a very nicely formatted gradebook. Then you can use conditional formatting. You can make charts of their grades. It's very useful and very easy, but you can't access it through your actual grade book in Google Classroom. You have to actually click on an individual assignment to find this. Moving on, we're just going to go over the basic 3 apps in Google Suite: Docs, Sheets, and Slides. There's very little in here that I'm going to explain. The first one is in Google Docs, 2 features that have been revamped a little bit or like work a lot better than they used to are Translate and Table of Contents. So you can translate a complete Google Doc and it will automatically detect the language of the original document. So it has changed a little bit that it does a lot better in using correct grammar in the new language. So here I have an example of a document I made and then translated to Spanish. It will just make a copy of the document. So it exports it and it will say translated copy of whatever the name of the document was. If you're translating like an outside document, I found some protocol for a lesson or like some piece of technology, and I didn't know what language it was. It was in some sort of Nordic language. I just said translate to English, and it automatically figured out what language it was and translated it. If you're translating a language that they've been using a while, so if you go to Spanish or French or Chinese, several others, the ones that Google Translate has been doing for the longest, you'll find that it's a lot more robust. When I did it, I think it was in Swedish, this other document. There were a few grammatical errors, but it was close enough that I knew what it was trying to tell me. And then the second one is that you can make documents that have links within them to jump throughout. So you can add like a table of contents to the beginning of a document so that somebody doesn't have to read the whole thing to try and scroll and find what you're looking for. So you just go to insert, and at the bottom is table of contents, and then if they click on any of the things that populate there, it will take them down to it. The way you get information to show up in the table of contents is just by formatting it as a heading. So just highlight the text, and instead of normal text, turn it to heading or title, and it will turn into a heading. Or it'll turn into an item in your table of contents. And if you reformat, you just click the refresh button and it pops up. So this is really useful like for a syllabus or something. Now that we're doing everything distance and they're going to be viewing it on a tablet instead of printed out, it makes it a lot easier to just do a jumpable link at the top to navigate a document. In Google Slides, there's just a few things I wanted to point out that can be useful. The first one is what is pictured here is adding a Q&A to slides presentation. So you can generate a link that will make like a little question, like dialog box pop up for anybody viewing your slideshow. And then they can ask questions that pop up in your speaker's notes that don't actually interrupt the flow of your slides. And then when you want to answer that question, you can click the present, and then it pops up on screen and says who asked it, if they want to share who asked it, and then you can answer that and just hop right back in to your presentation. You can also edit. There's a thing under the edit bar is a thing called master slide. So if you really like a theme except one thing is off with it, like you like the pattern but you don't like the colors, you can create a custom theme by editing a master slide, and it creates a theme that's just yours. So that helps a lot. Like if you don't like the font in one of the themes, you can just change the font and then it'll save it as a separate theme. You can add narration into your speaker's notes. So if you are giving a presentation, you can have it transcribe what you're saying into the speaker's notes, so anybody who missed the presentation can just read it later. And you can add captions to your presentation. So that is just at the bottom, and you click captions on and it will caption what you're saying. Next up, this applies to doc sheets and slides, is the Explore icon. So this is a little icon that's in the bottom right of either of these three document types, and it combines a lot of the tools that they took out of the toolbar at the top and puts like the most used ones into this one spot. So this is something that I rarely used before, but you can use it to like add citations, create charts, change formatting, and it just suggests what they think is going to be best for your document. So in docs, it's really the most robust. So you can automatically look up like keywords that they find in your document and do a Google search for them. Once you've done a Google search, on the next slide I'll show you, it will let you add a citation directly into it without you finding it. It'll look up related images it thinks you might want to put in, and you can connect to any related files in your drive, so it will show you what other files you've already made that use the same key terms that you've used in this document. And like I said, it will create citations if you quote anything from the links. So here I have it. Like I looked up the term active learning from a document I was looking at, and I wanted to use this definition here in the second search option. So I just highlighted it and copy and pasted it into my document, and I did that here. And then when I was done, I left my cursor at the end of that section and just press the Cite as Footnote option. And what it does is add footnotes in with a custom citation. And you can change, if you look at this little more options here, you can change the type of citation. I believe they have MLA, APA, and Chicago available, and you just change it there and generate a citation. And then if you don't like it as a footnote, you can just copy paste this into a works cited page at the end. In Sheets, if you go to the Explore option, it's a little bit different, so it'll suggest charts based on the titles and types of data that you're looking at, and you can choose one that they have in there. It'll apply custom formats, so it'll do things like color code the titles or use the every other line shaded in to make it more readable, and you can choose from the things that they suggest there. And then it suggests different pivot tables that might be appropriate, again, based on the way that you've titled the columns and rows in your data. And then you can just go from that and then customize it how you'd like. And then slides, it's really the least robust of the three, but you can do a web search for key terms just like you can in docs. The difference is it doesn't automatically create citations for you. So a little bit of a loss there. It suggests images you might want on any of your slides based on the terms you've used, and you can preview different layouts and themes based on the types of information you have, and then just click on ones that you think look nice. And then you can still connect to related files in your drive. In Google Forms, this is not new capability that they have, but just some things that make it easier now that we're going to be doing a lot more of like assessment online. One is that you can automatically grade a form, and the second is that you can create a differentiated quiz. So for graded quizzes, this is something most people have probably done before. You go to your settings in the form in the upper right hand corner in the gear, and then go to the quizzes tab and say make this a quiz. And then there are other options that say whether or not you're going to tell the student their grade as soon as they're done, or whether or not they have to wait until you've reviewed it. And then in the form, once you click on a question, once it's turned into a quiz, there's an answer key option. And when you click on that, you get to select what is the right answer and how many points do you want that question to be worth. So it's a really easy way that if you make a quiz assignment in Google Classroom and then use this function, you don't even have to grade it. It just grades it for you. The second one, which is a little bit more complicated, but something that is really useful to do, especially if you want to add some like scaffolding into your quizzes, is differentiating your quizzes. So it acts kind of like a choose your own adventure type of thing. This one is a little more complicated. I made a video on it and I linked to some examples if you want to see how they work. But basically what you do is you can start your quiz with a multiple choice or drop down question, so something where they have to make a choice. And then in the More Options tab, you go to a section based on your answer. Then for each of the options that you give them, you're going to make them go to a different section. So as soon as you select this option here, this second column of options shows up for you. And it says what section do you want them to go to, and you just create a new section, which is the bottom button here, the 2 bars. Create a new section for the quiz. So you'll have each one go to a different one, and then it basically gives different quizzes for different students based on what they've chosen for their first answer. So there's 2 major reasons that this can be useful. One is like if they study different topics but you just want to give one quiz, you can say like, what article did you read this week? And then based on what answer they give for that question, there's specific questions for each of the articles they could have read. So again, there's a video of that. It's a little hard to explain like over voice. The second option, and the one that I think is really a more useful way to use it, is if they get a question wrong, you can have them go, only if they answered it wrong, get like a second like retry of that question where you give them some supplemental information. So it could be like you give them a snapshot of a slide you did in class or a diagram and let them try to answer the question again. And the reason that I think that one is a lot more useful is that then when you look at your data at the end, when you get the slide or the sheets data from the quiz that you gave, you'll see which students got it right the first time, which students got it right the second time with a little bit of extra help, and then which students missed it twice. So you can really differentiate like who has mastered the material and who is almost there versus who doesn't know it at all. I will say that if 2 notes here, if you add more than one differentiated question, it gets really confusing with the layout because there's just one column, like one long stream in your slides. So I'd suggest that you like map it out with a little like downstream diagram before you go through. And then obviously take the quiz several times so you make sure you've gotten all the options correct. There are a lot of ways this can go wrong, but I do think it's worth it to use it. And then just a note, you probably shouldn't do automatic grading and a differentiated quiz because it doesn't take into account that they only took one of the options. So if you differentiate on question 1 and then there's 3 different paths they could have taken, it will say they missed all the ones that you never even showed them. So I would suggest not doing automatic grading just for this one. For extensions and add-ons, I only have a couple. So these are external apps that you can get through the Chrome Web Store, and then they just show up in your Chrome browser or on your Chromebook. They only do work if you're using Chrome, so this doesn't work on like an iPad or a phone. Or if you're using Safari, you can't do this. So these are both for reading that I think are really useful. Google ReadWrite is the first one, and it creates this toolbar that has a lot of different options for you to do. So the first two are just really check for, it's kind of like a spell and grammar check. They have a dictionary and a visual dictionary. This part here you can play and pause, that they will read it aloud to you. The really more interesting ones I think are over here. You can highlight a document or a web page, any text, and then you can, with this little recycling looking thing over here, it will gather all of the things that you've highlighted and export it into another document. You can have this little bar that like blurs out the rest of your screen to make it a lot easier for people to read, especially struggling readers like someone with dyslexia. This is really helpful. You can web search a term that you find. And then this one I think is really interesting, is that you can highlight a piece of text, like a document or a few paragraphs, and then it will convert it into a downloadable MP3 file. So a student can basically get like an audiobook version of a document. The downside of this is that it is only free for teachers. Students have to pay like a subscription, an annual subscription. But if you are using this in class, you could use this to create MP3s for your students. And they can, maybe if they like it, use it later. The second one is a little less robust, but I think a really, really useful tool. It works on most text on the internet if you use it in reader mode. It's called Beeline Reader, and it does two things that help. It's mostly like for dyslexia or having issues reading on screen. So the first thing that I have down here is that it can color code lines of text to make it easier to stay in the right spot when you have a block of text. So you can see it colors it from like halfway through the first line to halfway through the second line, so you can quickly get to the right spot. You don't lose your places easily. You can really customize this. I made it bright so that it really pops out, but you can make it like more subtle. You can change the colors to whatever you want. And then they have a focus feature that blurs out everything that is not the main text of the page. So it blurs out all the ads, the banners, so that it's easier to read on a website. Okay, the rest of these are just general apps that are useful for distance learning teaching. So the first one is just some tips when you're recording lectures that I would say probably are best if you put on YouTube afterwards. So just some little troubleshooting on a Mac or PC. The easiest way to do a screen record is going to be on QuickTime. So you just open it and say new screen recording, and it will automatically do it for you for part of your screen or the full screen. It is also capable of recording your screen and you through your webcam at the same time. So if you want like a lecture that has your like slideshow as well as you talking, you can do a little picture-in-picture movie because it will record two simultaneously. On an iPad and iPhone, there's the built-in screen record feature. You might need to activate it through your settings, but it's very easy to do. The only troubleshooting is to make sure your microphone setting is correct prior to recording. So I believe the default is that your microphone is off, and I have recorded a whole lecture without the microphone before, which was a pain. So just make sure the microphone setting is on. It's a little button. As soon as you say you want a screen recording, you get to click on or off the microphone. And then on Chromebooks, so this is the most difficult one, or there's no built-in capability to screen record on a Chromebook. There are some extensions through Chrome that I've tried, which are fine, but they're not really that great to use. There's not a lot of free ones. There's a lot of subscription-based ones. So the workaround that I've had use work best is to use Google Meet and just have like a private video conference with yourself. So you open a new Meet and you start the meeting and then go to the Present Now. That'll be down at the bottom. And then select to record the meeting as well. And then you just click through. It's very similar to QuickTime that it lets you present either like one tab or whatever's on your home screen. You choose whatever you want it to do. And then as soon as you end the meeting, as long as you recorded it, it will save it to your drive. And as soon as it's finished, like uploading it to your drive, you will be sent an email. So the downside is the meeting name is going to be something very strange. It's usually like the code to get into the meeting, so a weird string of numbers. But like I said, they send you an email. So you'll get an email from Google Meet that says your meeting is now available to view and an attachment to it. And then it's ready to send to YouTube. Just a note on YouTube is if you are adding a video, if you want a whole lesson on how to do a YouTube channel, we could do that later. But just to note, if you're putting YouTube videos on there, the editing features are very minimal. So you can add audio, you can trim like little segments out, you can add cards or buttons, which is basically like you can add a subscribe button or a link to another of your videos. But that's about it. There's not a lot of like special effects. You can't add a title or text to it. The one feature that I do think is really useful that you can't find on every other free video editor is to add a blur. So you can go through your video and place, there's a limited number, but I think it's like 25 or 50 areas to blur. So you can choose blur faces and it'll automatically detect faces and blur them all out. Or you can add like separate boxes and blur things out. So if you want to blur out your students' names or emails or whatever you want to blur before you post something, it'll let you do that and then preview before you post it to YouTube. So that feature I do think is very useful. Keep is just like the little sticky note app. You make notes and to-do lists and things. Some features that they've added is you can make collaborative notes. So you can have a note exist for you and someone else that you can both edit, which is useful for like taking notes or finding resources if kids are working together. Something else that's useful is you can create drawings directly in a note. So if you click the little drawing button, especially on an iPad, this is really nice that you can like do some art and it saves it for you there. You can attach emails to a note. So you have to do this through Gmail and not actually through the Notes app. But if you want to take some notes about referencing an email you got, you can do that really easily. You can add links and images and tasks. You can set a reminder either like within a time frame, like you can set a time and date for it, or you can set a reminder based on a geotag, which is a little bit weird but works. So if like you're at home and you want to say like, oh, when I get to school I have to make copies, you can say remember to make copies and then have it remind you when your phone gets to school. So it'll tell you what to do when you get to certain places. So it can be useful there. And then the last thing is that they now let you export any of your notes to a document. So let's say you were taking notes, like saving almost like bookmarks, information you found, or even your drawing, and now you want to turn it in as a document. You just say export to docs. It creates a new document with all the same information. Google Sites is really like the easiest site builder I've ever used. Can make you like a nicer looking than Google Classroom site for your class. something else that is nice is that you can really customize who gets to see it. So you can make a public site that has information about your course. You can make it limited to just people at our domain, or you can make it like limited to only certain people. So I have my site set up that only my students and then their parents who I have taken their email information can view the site. And then it has links to like the syllabus and the textbook and videos they need to watch. You can embed basically anything from Google. You can embed like slideshows, YouTube, calendars, anything that you can put in there. And then just make it look kind of nice. I had students who, they were just tired of looking at Google Classroom by the end of things. And then you can also put like a little stream of student work if you want. You can have pictures that you've taken, like all sorts of things in there. And like I said, it's so easy to navigate. I'm not even going to record how to do that because it's all set up like foolproof for you to do. And it automatically generates an address for you, a free site address based on the name of your class. It's really great. Google Earth, these are my favorite ones to use for class that are a little out of the ordinary. There's 4 different features I'm going to go over for Google Earth that are similar and slightly different. So Google Maps and Earth are like cousin apps. They just like go back and forth between them. So I do have 1 or 2 in here that you go through maps to get there, but they're using Google Earth things. So I'm going to go over My Maps, Voyager, and Projects, which are the same thing, Tour Builder, and then Time Lapse. So My Maps is the simplest one. You get to it through Google Maps, but it uses Google Earth information, and you can basically make your own custom Google map that's private to you, but then shareable. So what you can do is to decide what sites you want to feature. You can search and use any sites they have. You can put a pin anywhere you want on there. And then you can make them into different layers. So you can group things by whatever types of places these are. So here I have one about California Marine Protected Areas, and I've separated them into the type of protected area they are. So you can highlight and take off. You can change the base map, so what they see. I'm using satellite data, but you can use a terrain map or like a political map or just a blank, like dark or light map. It's very useful. And then for each point, it lets you kind of make your own pop-up bar. Like if you're using Google Maps and like a picture of that place pops up and then information and links, you can add all that in there as they pop through. You can insert YouTube videos to play, all sorts of things to put in. You can also, I don't have it in here, but you can measure distances between places. You can connect them in a certain order. It's really nice if you want like non-sequential information. You don't want them to actually go from point to point. You just want to show everything that exists in the same time. So things like here's all the national parks or here's all the state capitals, something like that. It's also really, really easy for students to make their own. So they could do this as part of a project if they're looking at different places. So I like it. It's very simple but useful. The more robust one, they're really almost the same thing. Voyager and Tour Builder are 2 apps that are like running simultaneously to do the same job, and at some point I'm sure one will disappear. I assume they'll move to Voyager, but for now Tour Builder still exists. So Tour Builder / Voyager are different because you get to take people like on a trip. You decide the sequence that these events are going to pop up as they travel through what you want there. So they're pretty easy to build. They're really, you can add more information, you can add more videos, you can add links straight into your thing to pop to where they're supposed to go. You can go to Street View, which you can't do in My Maps. But you can open Street View, and when you're building it, you can like lock where you want them to look at. So it will take them to the spot and actually give them the perspective on the spot that you want. So Voyager and Tour Builder, while they are still separate, I guess have different strengths and weaknesses. You can see Voyager is really sleek. It doesn't give you like an overview of every spot you're going to go to. So it really is like a little guided tour where you don't know where you're going to go next. And you have to go to things in order. You have to go click through this one at a time to get to the next destination. Tour Builder doesn't look quite as nice while you're on it, but it's nice that it gives you kind of an overview of what you're looking at. So it tells them basically like the suggested tour they should be taking. It's really nice if you want to do things in chronological order. This one here is the life of Jane Goodall. And you click through each little card and it pops up still in Google Earth, whatever view they want you to see. Any media that you've attached, videos or pictures, pop up here, and then you can put whatever text you want down here, like a whole lot of text, and it'll scroll through. For both of these, you can make them yourself if you have something custom, and you can also search through any public ones anyone else has made. So there are some really good ones already made on a whole lot of topics. Like historically, you can go through different wars. You can go through different events and it'll take you to all the places where those events took place. You can see, like for ecology, you can do tours of a national park. You can do, like here, a tour of somebody's life. There's books that people have put in there for English where it tells you, like shows you the real life places that books took place. I think this is really cool. There's also, I feel like I keep saying there's also for this one, built-in tours of a lot of different cultural sites. So museums and zoos, aquariums, like anything that is like a state-funded institution. There's street view tours of inside those buildings, and some of them are really, really robust, like the Smithsonian. You can actually click on different items in the exhibit and it'll pull up information about them or even videos about that thing. Like you can see the Hope Diamond and then click on it and pull up a video about the Hope Diamond. So there's like 2,000 museums, I think, worldwide that are registered in there. So you can click and find it anywhere. And then the last one that I think is really neat is time-lapse. So this, you can see this video on the right is Dubai. And through time-lapse, you have access to satellite images of everywhere around the globe from 1984 to 2018. And then it will create a time-lapse video for you. Or you can freeze it and look at certain images. So you can find this for anywhere to see how things have changed over time. And then there are some suggestions, like Dubai was a suggestion to show urbanization. You can see like glaciers retreating, you can see deforestation. They've really highlighted some of the areas that have really interesting things happening that you can go look at. But you can create it for literally anywhere around the world. I think that's it. Okay, so I know that was a lot of apps. That took a long time to go through. Hopefully it just showed you like what is available in Google and some of the ways that you can use it that are all built in and free on a Google Education account. All the links to these sites and any of the tutorials that I mentioned, like for forms, how to build a tour, how to set up a classroom, all of those will be located in the Google PD Google Classroom. So just join that and they're all grouped and put in there. Okay, thank you, and I hope this helped.